Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The Minnesota Vikings are making waves in the NFL world, and what we're about to reveal could completely change the trajectory of their 2026 season. Fresh reports have emerged suggesting that one of the most electrifying players in NFL history might be suiting up in purple and gold, while insider information has leaked regarding the team's strategic draft plans that could reshape their entire offensive identity. This is the kind of story that sends shockwaves through the league, and Vikings fans need to pay attention because what's brewing in Minneapolis could be absolutely game-changing. Picture this scenario: Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and Odell Beckham Jr. lined up in the same receiving corps. Sounds like something straight out of a Madden fantasy team, right? Well, this fever dream might actually be closer to reality than anyone expected. According to NFL insider Jordan Schultz, free agent wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. has been receiving renewed interest in recent days following an impressive showing at Tom Brady's Fanatics Flag Football game. Multiple sources are now confirming that Beckham was one of the most impressive players on the field during that event. And here's the kicker: he fully intends to play in the 2026 NFL season. Now, before we dive deeper into this potential blockbuster connection, let's address the elephant in the room. It's becoming increasingly clear that Odell and his representation are pulling out all the stops to get him back into the NFL. The timing of these reports, the strategic media appearances, the carefully orchestrated leaks about his performance at celebrity events, this all reeks of a well-coordinated campaign to remind NFL teams that OBJ still has gas left in the tank. The reality is that Beckham's market is extremely limited right now. At this stage of his career, only a handful of teams would realistically consider bringing him aboard, and most of those situations would involve feel-good storylines rather than genuine competitive needs. The New York Giants, for instance, might be interested in a nostalgic reunion, bringing back the player who once made that legendary one-handed catch that broke the internet and defined an entire generation of highlight reels. They could slot him in as their third or fourth receiving option, capitalizing on the emotional connection Giants fans still have with their former superstar. But make no mistake, Beckham's camp is working overtime to generate buzz and create opportunities where they might not naturally exist. Even respected insiders like Adam Schefter have been discussing OBJ's potential return to the league, which tells you just how aggressively his team is pushing this narrative. Representatives from Beckham's camp have been making the rounds, having conversations with anyone who will listen. There are reports that OBJ has maintained a strong relationship with Baltimore Ravens head coach John Harbaugh, dating back to his time in Baltimore, and those connections are being leveraged to maximum effect. The message is crystal clear: Odell Beckham Jr. wants back in, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen. But here's where things get really interesting for Vikings fans. The connection between Minnesota and Odell Beckham Jr. isn't just some random speculation pulled out of thin air. There are legitimate, substantial ties that make this pairing far more plausible than you might initially think. Let's start with the most obvious one: Kevin O'Connell. When Beckham won his Super Bowl ring with the Los Angeles Rams, who was calling the plays as the offensive coordinator? None other than current Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell. They've worked together before, they know each other's strengths and tendencies, and there's already an established level of trust and familiarity there. But the connections run even deeper than that. Odell Beckham Jr. and Justin Jefferson share a really special relationship through the legendary LSU wide receiver pipeline. Think about the lineage here. It started with OBJ lighting up college football and taking the NFL by storm. Then Jamar Chase followed in his footsteps. Then Justin Jefferson himself. And more recently, guys like Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors have continued that tradition of excellence. There's a brotherhood among LSU receivers, a shared understanding of what it takes to excel at the highest level. Jefferson and Beckham have publicly expressed mutual admiration for each other, and you can bet that Jefferson would be thrilled to have OBJ in the same locker room, learning from someone who paved the way for his own success. Let's also not forget what Beckham accomplished during that magical Rams Super Bowl run. People tend to overlook his contributions because Cooper Kupp was rightfully getting most of the attention and accolades at the wide receiver position, but OBJ was absolutely crucial to that championship run. In the NFC Championship game against the San Francisco 49ers, he racked up over 100 yards receiving, making critical plays when it mattered most. Throughout the entire postseason, he hauled in 2 touchdowns and accumulated just under 300 yards in 4 games. He even scored in the Super Bowl itself before his season was tragically cut short by injury. That's not some washed-up veteran along for the ride. That was a legitimate contributor making championship-level plays on the biggest stage in football. Now, let's pump the brakes for just a second and inject some reality into this fantasy scenario. As amazing as a Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Odell Beckham Jr. receiving core would look on paper or in a video game, we're not playing Madden Ultimate Team here. We're talking about real football with real salary cap constraints and real concerns about player performance and longevity. The harsh truth is that Odell Beckham Jr. probably doesn't have a whole lot left in the tank at this point in his career. The numbers don't lie, and they paint a pretty grim picture. Beckham wasn't even in the NFL last season. He sat out the entire year, which means he's been away from the game, away from the speed, away from the physicality that defines professional football. Before that, in the 2024 season with the Miami Dolphins, he managed a paltry 55 receiving yards across 9 games. That's not a typo. 55 total yards in 9 games. Those are practice squad numbers, not statistics you'd expect from a supposed difference maker at the wide receiver position. Even going back to his time with the Baltimore Ravens in 2023, which was 3 full years ago at this point, he only managed 565 yards and 3 touchdowns in 14 games. That's respectable for a third receiver, but hardly the production you'd expect from someone with Beckham's pedigree and reputation. So what would be the better options for Minnesota if they're serious about adding a veteran wide receiver to complement Jefferson and Addison? Let's rank some realistic possibilities. Number 1 on the board should be DeAndre Hopkins. Yes, he's not the same dominant force he was during his prime years, but he's proven far more recently than Beckham that he can still contribute at a high level. More importantly, Hopkins has an established chemistry and relationship with Kyler Murray, and if the Vikings are seriously considering bringing Murray to Minnesota, as some reports have suggested, having a familiar face in the receiving corps could make that transition infinitely smoother. When you're asking a quarterback to uproot his entire life and learn a completely new system after spending 7 years in Arizona, giving him a trusted veteran target who knows his tendencies could be invaluable. Hopkins would give Murray that security blanket, that familiar connection he can rely on when everything else feels foreign and uncomfortable. Option number 2 should be giving Ty Felton a real shot at being the third receiver. The Vikings didn't use a third-round draft pick on Felton just so he could exclusively play special teams and be a gunner on the punt coverage unit. That's way too valuable a resource to waste on a role player. They selected him specifically for situations like the one they're facing right now. Jalen Nailor got too expensive and left in free agency, creating a vacuum at the third receiver spot. This is Felton's opportunity to prove he deserves that role, to show that the Vikings' faith in using a premium pick on him was justified. Before even considering signing a veteran like Beckham, the team should exhaust every possibility of developing the young talent they've already invested in. Odell Beckham Jr. would rank 3rd on this list of potential wide receiver options, and honestly, there's a strong argument to be made that the Vikings would be better off drafting a young receiver and developing them rather than signing Beckham to what would likely be a 1-year, $3 million deal, similar to what DeAndre Hopkins signed last offseason. That kind of money for that level of production just doesn't make sound football sense when you're trying to build a sustainable winner. But here's the thing, and this is important to understand from an emotional perspective. For an entire generation of NFL fans, Odell Beckham Jr. isn't just another player. He's an icon. He's a legend. He represents a specific era of football that captured imaginations and created memories that will last forever. For fans in their mid to late 20s right now, Beckham's prime years with the New York Giants from 2014 to 2016 were absolutely magical. Those were the seasons that made people fall head over heels in love with professional football. The one-handed catch that defied physics and became instantly iconic. The hilarious sideline fight with the kicking net that spawned 1,000 memes. The intense battles with Josh Norman that had everyone glued to their televisions. This was must-see TV every single week, and Beckham was at the center of it all. His rookie season alone was the stuff of legend. Beckham was picked up off waivers in fantasy football leagues everywhere and proceeded to absolutely explode for 1,300 yards in just 12 games. That kind of immediate impact is extraordinarily rare, especially for a mid-season addition. He made the spectacular look routine and turned ordinary plays into highlight reel moments. Even though his career didn't ultimately pan out the way everyone expected after those first 3 dominant years, even though injuries and off-field drama derailed what should have been a Hall of Fame trajectory, none of that diminishes what he accomplished or what he meant to the game during his peak. There's genuine love and appreciation for what Odell Beckham Jr. brought to the NFL, for the excitement and electricity he generated every time he touched the football. But nostalgia and sentiment can't be the driving forces behind roster construction decisions for a team with legitimate Super Bowl aspirations. The Minnesota Vikings need to make cold, calculated choices based on production, scheme fit, and long-term value. As much as it would be fun to see OBJ in purple and gold, as much as the vibes would be immaculate having him mentor younger receivers and bring that championship experience to the locker room, the Vikings should probably pass on this particular reunion. Now, let's shift gears and talk about the other massive development coming out of Minnesota, their draft strategy at the running back position. Ben Gessling, who is as tapped into the Vikings organization as any insider in the business, recently dropped some fascinating intel about the team's plans for the upcoming NFL draft. According to Gessling, it would not be surprising at all if one of Minnesota's top 100 picks ends up being used on a running back. The Vikings currently hold pick 18 in the first round, pick 49 in the second round, and then picks 82 and 97 in the third round. That gives them 4 premium selections in the top 100, and using one of those third-round choices on a running back seems increasingly likely. Let's break down 5 names that make sense for the Vikings and analyze how each would fit into their offensive scheme. First up is Emmett Johnson, the running back from Nebraska, who just so happens to have grown up in Minnesota as a Vikings fan. Talk about a perfect story. This guy has legitimate juice as a runner, combining power, vision, and enough speed to break big plays when the blocking is there. Johnson rushed for just under 1,500 yards last season while averaging an impressive 5.8 yards per carry. Those are serious numbers that demonstrate both efficiency and production at a high level of college football. Johnson's scouting combine results weren't particularly spectacular, which could cause him to slide down draft boards and potentially make him available when the Vikings select at pick 92 in the third round. If we're talking about pure scheme fit and how a running back would complement Jordan Mason in a committee approach, Emmett Johnson might be the best option in this entire class for Minnesota. He brings a different dimension than Mason while still maintaining the physical, downhill running style that Kevin O'Connell's offense values. The yin and yang dynamic between Johnson and Mason could create matchup nightmares for opposing defenses throughout an entire game. Next up is Jarian Price from Notre Dame, who spent this past season as the backup to Jeremiah Love, but still managed to showcase elite-level talent whenever he touched the ball. People across the NFL scouting community view Price as the undisputed number 2 running back in this entire draft class, which means he'll almost certainly come off the board in the second round. If the Vikings wanted to secure his services, they'd need to use that 49th overall pick, which feels like a significant investment for a position they've already addressed through free agency with Jordan Mason. That said, Price is a special talent with legitimate dual-threat ability. Over his past 2 seasons at Notre Dame, he's been incredibly productive, despite sharing touches with another talented back. He scored 13 touchdowns this past season alone while playing alongside Love, which demonstrates both his efficiency in the red zone and his ability to make plays even with limited opportunities. Price would give the Vikings a true three-down back who can contribute in the passing game, something that becomes increasingly valuable in today's NFL. However, using a second-round pick on a running back when you just signed Jordan Mason and still have Aaron Jones on the roster might be a tougher sell to the front office. If the Vikings are genuinely concerned about their struggles in short yardage and goal line situations, then Jonah Coleman from Washington needs to be on their radar. This is a bulldozing, physical runner who specializes in exactly the scenarios where Minnesota has struggled most. Coleman is basically Kareem Hunt 2.0, a compact, powerful back who excels at moving the pile and finishing runs in tight spaces. If you believe the Vikings' short yardage failures are primarily a personnel issue rather than a scheme or execution problem, then Coleman is your guy. His production over the past 2 seasons at Washington speaks for itself. The touchdown numbers are absolutely ridiculous. 17 scores this past year alone in just 12 games. That's elite red zone and goal line production, the kind of efficiency you simply can't ignore when evaluating running back prospects. Coleman would immediately address one of the Vikings' most glaring weaknesses, giving them a legitimate hammer to deploy when they need 2 yards or less. He probably won't cost more than a 4th-round pick either, which makes him an excellent value proposition for a team looking to add depth and versatility to the backfield rotation. Mike Washington Jr. from Arkansas is one of the most intriguing prospects in this entire class because he combines elite athleticism with significant red flags that could cause him to fall on draft day. When we talk about juice and explosiveness, Washington is at the top of the chart. This is a big play waiting to happen every single time he touches the football. At Arkansas, this past season, he averaged 6.4 yards per carry and rushed for over 1,000 yards, despite only getting 167 total carries in 12 games. That kind of efficiency is remarkable and demonstrates his ability to turn small creases into huge gains. Washington has also shown tremendous growth and development throughout his college career, working his way up from Buffalo to New Mexico State and finally to Arkansas, where he proved he could compete against elite SEC defenders and make them look silly in the process. However, and this is a massive however, Washington has a fumbling problem that is genuinely concerning. His fumble rate throughout his entire college career sits at approximately 12%, which is one of the worst figures of all time for running back prospects entering the NFL draft. Ball security is non-negotiable at the professional level, and a running back who can't be trusted to protect the football becomes a massive liability regardless of how explosive he might be in the open field. The Vikings would need to feel extremely confident in their ability to correct this fundamental flaw before investing a draft pick in Washington. Finally, we have Kaytron Allen from Penn State, a player who has quietly become one of the most underrated running backs in this entire class. There's something special about Allen's running style that just pops off the tape. He's physical, he's decisive, and he seems to maximize every single carry by consistently falling forward and fighting for extra yards. Penn State had a disastrous season overall, but Allen was arguably the lone bright spot on offense, carrying the team on his back with 15 touchdowns while averaging 6.2 yards per attempt. When everyone around you is struggling and the entire offensive infrastructure is crumbling, putting up those kinds of numbers requires exceptional talent and mental toughness. The only reservation about Allen for the Vikings is that he's remarkably similar to Jordan Mason in terms of running style, body type, and skill set. If Minnesota didn't already have Mason on the roster, being all in on Kaytron Allen would make perfect sense. But when you watch their tape side by side, they're almost interchangeable in how they attack defenses and process the game. Drafting Allen would give you redundancy and insurance in case Mason doesn't work out, but it wouldn't necessarily give you the complementary skill set that would maximize the effectiveness of a running back committee approach. Looking at the bigger picture, it's clear that the Vikings are seriously considering adding another running back through the draft. And there are legitimate reasons supporting that strategy. They want to implement a true committee approach where multiple backs contribute throughout the game, keeping everyone fresh and exploiting matchup advantages. Aaron Jones would essentially become a glorified third down specialist, coming in for obvious passing situations and 2-minute drills. But both Mason and Jones have dealt with injury issues over the past 2 seasons. So having a third capable runner who can step up if either goes down becomes essential for maintaining offensive continuity. The NFL draft represents an opportunity to add young, cost-controlled talent at a position where the Vikings need depth and versatility. Whether they go with the hometown hero in Emmett Johnson, the high-upside talent in Jerian Price, the short-yardage specialist in Jonah Coleman, the explosive but flawed Mike Washington Jr., or the steady and reliable Katron Allen, it's becoming increasingly likely that Minnesota will invest a mid-round pick at the position. The chess pieces are moving, the strategy is taking shape, and Vikings fans should be excited about the potential combinations this offense could deploy in 2026. So there you have it, the complete breakdown of the Odell Beckham Jr. rumors swirling around Minnesota and the detailed analysis of the Vikings' potential running back targets in this year's draft. These are the storylines that will define the offseason and potentially shape the trajectory of the entire 2026 season. Will the Vikings take a chance on a legendary receiver trying to recapture past glory, or will they stick with their younger, less proven options? Will they invest premium draft capital in a running back to complement their newly signed Jordan Mason, or will they address other positions of need? These questions will be answered in the coming weeks and months, and we'll be here every step of the way breaking down every development, every rumor, and every decision as it happens. If you made it all the way to the end of this deep dive, make sure you smash that like button and drop a comment letting me know what you think. Would you sign Odell Beckham Jr. just for the vibes and the veteran presence, or is that nostalgia clouding your judgment? Which running back makes the most sense for the Vikings in the draft? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update as we count down to the NFL draft and continue covering every twist and turn of this wild Vikings offseason. The football never stops, and neither do we. Skol Vikings.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.